Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Father.
It's good to see you all here this morning. Today in our gospel, as we're now in the season of Lent, we begin to hear Jesus, or we have different gospel passages where we really hear him focusing in on his future, what's coming in the future. And yet he also begins telling the disciples periodically, he keeps kind of hinting at them, telling them that, you know what? Your life, if you want to follow me, is going to be radically different. And what did he say in our gospel today? He said, whoever wishes to come after me must deny himself, take up his cross daily, and follow me. Now, you and I, we've heard these words so many times that we understand it. We get what Jesus is getting across or trying to tell us. But you know, if you could only imagine for the apostles, this would have been radical. This would have been shocking even, because when he says, whoever wishes to come after me must take up his cross, well, the cross meant death. And so you can only imagine when they first heard Jesus say this, we have to die with you? Like death is coming our way if we want to follow you? And so you can only imagine how incredibly shocking that would have been for the apostles, the disciples, to hear that. But it is, as we now see it unfold later on, what Jesus is now referring to and what we can see in our own lives, the cross or suffering comes in many different ways, doesn't it? Whoever wishes to come after me must deny himself, humble himself, that is, take up his cross daily and follow me. You know, in all of the world religions tell us to avoid suffering at all costs. Avoid it. Just stay far away from it, except for one, and that's Christianity. All other world religions say avoid suffering at all costs. What's the problem? We can't actually avoid suffering. We can eat well, we can exercise, we can do our part to be good stewards of our body, but we still experience suffering, don't we? Whether it's physical suffering or spiritual suffering, or say the loss of a loved one, or the betrayal of a friend, we all experience suffering in one form or another. But Jesus shows us, because this is the most radical thing, of all the ways that God could have saved the world, he chose suffering. He chose suffering as the way in which he redeemed the world, saved the world. He chose suffering, which is something that we all encounter, as the means by which he saved us. What does that mean? It means that he elevated suffering, he raised it to the level of redemption, which means our suffering can now have meaning. And that's what he's trying to get across to his disciples and you and me. Whoever wishes to come after me must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. When we have the cross, when we encounter suffering in our lives, we're not alone. Jesus is with us. And he's inviting us to offer our suffering up for others, to carry it with him. We're never alone in our sufferings. We're never alone in the cross. Jesus is always with us. So we don't want to forget that. We can oftentimes, and in fact we can hear people say, if God is loving, then why does suffering exist? And that's a whole nother homily. That's a whole nother homily going into that. But Jesus knows, who is both God and man, he knows suffering to the very depths of it. So when we're encountering suffering, it's a reminder for us, Jesus, help me to walk with you. Jesus, help me to carry this cross with you. Help me, Jesus, to offer this cross, this suffering for others. At the very end, I don't know if you caught this, at the very end of the gospel today, Jesus says one more shocking thing. He says, what profit is there to gain the whole world, yet lose or forfeit oneself? I don't know if you understand what he's saying there. What he's saying is, you could have the whole entire world, or you could have all of the material things in the world, and they're all still less. You could have all the money, all the cars, all the vehicles, everything, and it's still less in value than your soul. Because everything in the world is passing away. It's a material thing. It will it will fade, it will break down, it will disappear or fade away in time. Your soul is eternal, which means it has far more value than anything and everything in the material world. That's amazing to think about. Your soul is more valuable to God than the whole material world combined. Just your soul. Now think of all the souls that God sees and loves. So boys and girls, it's so important for us to remember this. In the midst of suffering, in the midst of the cross, your soul is so valuable to Jesus. And he wants to help you and walk with you and assist you in carrying the cross. Why? Because our ultimate goal is not the cross. Our ultimate goal is heaven.